Hi there. It is Friday now. Hope everyone's had a good week. The other day, which, if anyone actually watches these videos, I do apologize that I haven't gotten anything out. It's just been not chaotic, but it's just different. I think when I'm not working, because we've had days off and whatnot, the daily activities change, and especially during the holiday season, and it's cold. Well, it's recently gotten cold again, so it's actually cold now. It's super windy. It's supposed to snow here in a couple days. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The other day, it was the other day. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I decided I wanted to talk about going off of a Locked On Orioles video. Not necessarily predicting, but kind of based on what's happened so far this offseason, which it's been updated today, which I'll get to, the 26-man roster, at least to start the season. And obviously you have to deal with injuries, but generally speaking, what you'd like to see on there. Now, I had written multiple times, actually, but specifically a few minutes ago. This is weird, but I literally wrote down what I was going to go over here on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper seems to have disappeared. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, so I'm just going off memory and just giving my thoughts here. So today, a couple hours ago, it came down that Charlie Morton had signed. I'll start with the pitching and address the offense/defense and just a broader set of questions, concerns, issues. I talked about the positives and how a lot of controllable, relatively young talent is there. But again, we'll go over this. Maybe if I'm able to, I can overlay a couple images with a visual of what I'm talking about. But anyway, starting with the rotation, since that's sort of what's relevant today. Two of the, 4 signings so far? Is it 4? O'Neill, Sagano, Morton, Sanchez, is that it? And then some depth. I think that's right. 2 of the 4 signings so far have been pitchers, starting pitchers, older starting pitchers. One with years and years of experience in Major League Baseball, one who's new to it at age 35. In one of my videos, actually I think it was the contingency video about when inevitably, knowing how things work with this team, none of Burns, Fried, Crochet, Snell would have joined the team. And in some ways, starting pitching wise, in my opinion, I don't know. I'm not even going to get into that part right now, but that obviously is what happened. And I mentioned that due to the fact that Burns threw so many innings and Bradish is still out, one possibility was at least one inning eater type arm would be acquired. I had named the likes of Andrew Heaney, however you say it. Trevor Williams one? Either way, it doesn't matter because he went back to the Nationals. Michael Lorenzen was an idea. So that type of arm. Now, obviously, the 2 arms brought in so far, Morton and Sagano, are older, as I said. 1-year deals, a lot of money. And I guess the question becomes, what does that tell us? If the rotation a few weeks ago would have been something to the effect of Eflin, Rodriguez, Kramer, Suarez, Povich, or maybe Rogers instead of Povich. And now the last two are not there. And it's now, in no particular order, Morton and Sagano in there. Does that mean that, in theory, it could go to a 6-man rotation? Does it mean that they're going to beef up the bullpen? Recently, Jack Flaherty had been linked to come back, which I was actually in favor of that, mainly because I didn't want to trade for Dylan Cease, and I also didn't want some older guy, which specifically, though, I was thinking Scherzer and Verlander I wanted to avoid, so Morton has more recently been maybe not super effective, but he's actually given innings. I think he pitched like 165 last year, if I looked at that correctly just now when I was looking at the computer. So from that perspective, you are replacing a lot of the innings Burns gave you. Is it as high quality? No. Is it necessarily... I guess this goes back to the question, and I'll eventually get to the roster and what I think will happen / what should happen, I think. But anyway, those are two different ideas that maybe even just could be a different video. But what this tells me is that Bradish probably isn't coming back anytime soon, maybe like August. Wells, if he does come back, is going to be in the bullpen. They don't trust at least one of Povich and Rogers. They don't expect Suarez to be at least as consistent as he was last year, seeing as he's a similar age and his track record's limited. They don't necessarily expect McDermott or Young to step up, which is normal. They'll be in AAA, along with at least one of Povich and Rogers you'd expect. And personally, as I've said before, I would love to see either a top of rotation guy or a high-end bullpen arm, just because you don't know what you're getting with Bautista. You don't know if any of Cano, Dominguez, Soto, what their consistency will be like. And I'm more or less going over the pitching right now. So to get back to this, and then I'll eventually get to the other issue, which gets to the lineup and contracts and experience and what's going on here. The rotation now, we'll just go with 5 and then 8 relievers. The 5 would be Eflin, Rodriguez, Kramer. Well, actually, no. We'll switch the order. Eflin, Rodriguez, Morton, Kramer, Sagano. Povich, Rogers, Wells. Good Lord. Why do I keep saying Wells? Povich, Rogers, Young, McDermott, all in AAA. Wells and Bradish injured. I think that was all of them so far. And then the bullpen, 7 of Suarez, who's long relief, your 3 higher quality righties, Bautista, Cano, Dominguez, no particular order. So that's 4. And then as of now, you would say Aiken, Perez, Soto, plus one of, I guess, Baker, Selby, Bowman. And I don't like Baker. I've never liked Baker. So it'd probably be between Selby and Bowman. And that's more or less a coin flip. It's a long season. People get injured. So realistically, they could all end up in AAA. And I would like to see Tanner Scott come back, especially if, in terms of long contracts, there's nothing happening. So if you could give him like 3 for maybe 15 to 20 and just have a lockdown bullpen, plus if things go awry, you could just flip him, because he'll be, unless things just go completely wrong for him specifically, there's going to be a market for Tanner Scott. I don't think that'll happen, though. I've said this multiple times, but it is what it is. I think the bullpen's fine. Again, I think if it's that 7, I would like a higher quality 8th, and then just say, all right, well, we have options further down, and have the AAA team, A, be more competitive, and B, actually have a number of guys available to come up when needed. That's a direct segue into the lineup and the hitters. So, starting with the outfield, I'm counting one guy here as an outfielder and one guy in the infield who can all split the outfield, so we'll just go over those. Starters, more than likely, a lot of the time, Kowser Mullins with O'Neill, and then Kjerstad, Mateo would be the other two. So that's your 5, although obviously Kjerstad could play first, could DH. Mateo could play second or short. So that's your outfield, infield. Starting from the left, Westberg, Arias, Gunnar, Holiday with Mateo, who I already mentioned, and then first, Mountcastle and O'Hearn with Adley starter, Gary Sanchez backup behind the plate. That leaves Rivera, who would have to be DFA'd because apparently he's out of options, Mayo, Adams, Gordon, Cameron, plus most other guys who are like Levon Soto. I think he played here in like a couple times when there was an injury crisis. He'd be in AAA at that point. And then other options, obviously Basayo, Beavers, Fabian, Servideo, Haskin. I'm just naming names at this point. There was one other one, TT Bowens, guys like that. Anyway, point being, is Haskin even there anymore? I think he's still there. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that that's a solid group. The concern, I suppose you could say, and this actually goes back to across the board, a lack of, a combination of a level of controlled talent, but also a number of contracts that are running out within the next 1 to 2 years. So going back over quickly the pitching, you'd have Eflin, Morton, Sagano, Dominguez, Soto, all with 1 year left. Hitting wise, Mateo, Mullins, O'Hearn, O'Neill if he opts out, Sanchez, all with 1 year left. That's a lot of guys. That's like 10 guys, potentially, that could all be gone. So that begs the question, what is this year to the Orioles? And what is the goal? Because the moves so far don't suggest that this is a team that's serious about winning a championship. This suggests they're being risk averse, they're making quote unquote good business decisions, operating from like basically not playing a video game in a good way, but playing a video game in a bad way, where it's like, oh, well, we're just gonna, more like a spreadsheet operator type of operation. I don't know, operation. But you get what I'm saying. It's not as though they went out and said, right, well, we have 4 years of Gunnar Henderson and he's going to leave. We have 5 more years of Jackson Holiday, Colton Cowser, Jordan Westberg. They might leave. You have 3 years of Adley Rutschman. If you don't extend him, he's going to leave. Burns came in and left. Eflin has a year left. You don't know what you're getting back from Bradish or Bautista. They didn't go out and add top of the rotation, and they haven't done anything else to the bullpen. And really, it's been like for like changes with the lineup. So that tells me you're content with kind of like Jerry DiPoto and the Mariners. Oh, well, 80-something wins, maybe make the playoffs. That's what you're content with. Slightly above 500. Go from 100 wins to 90 wins to maybe 85. Because there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. And I made a video about that I decided not to release because it got a little long and it seemed just like a whine instead of something somewhat productive, which I believe this is. So again, the question becomes, if you're going to you're not throwing away a year, but you're acknowledging that risk aversion and making quote unquote smart decisions is more important than going all in, despite the fact that you have a number of really good players, which I talked about in the last video, on incredibly friendly team friendly contracts for just a few years. Once they get into ARB years, once they have 1 or 2 years left, it's going to not look quite as rosy around there. Because if you're not investing long term with anything, and you're not winning, which they haven't won a playoff game yet, and they're not a lot to make the playoffs this coming year by any means. I mean, I'd expect them probably to, because a lot of other teams seem to be incompetent or cheap, but it's never a lock. You saw last year with the injuries. So the question becomes, guys like Kobe Mayo, Jackson Holliday, Heston Kjerstad, if you're not truly improving the team, if you're making sideways status quo decisions, shouldn't they be getting all the game time? Why not trade one of Mountcastle and O'Hearn? Why keep Urias if his contract's running out and he's basically been a platoon hitting lefties type of player? If you figure out Mayo's position, get Basayo through AAA, have at least one of Beavers and Fabian come through, prepare Bradfield for next year once there's a bunch of guys gone, and maybe winning's always a priority. Let's not mess that up. But again, they aren't acting like they want to win. The Dodgers act like they want to win. The Mets right now are acting like they want to win. There's only a few teams acting like they want to win, honestly. Even the Yankees with Soto leaving haven't done what I would have completely expected to prove, hey, we lost one of our best players, but we're going to go all in and try to win a World Series. They haven't even done that. So people saying, oh, well, they might not make the playoffs. They'll finish 4th in the division. Behind who? Boston, they're cheap too. Tampa Bay is the definition of cheap. They're up there with Oakland as the cheapest team in the league, more or less. They don't spend any money. They're trying to get rid of dudes who make money. They just traded Springs for that reason. The Blue Jays are a mess. Even if they sign Santander, their pitching still sucks. Most of their lineup still sucks. So from that perspective, I think they'll at worst finish 3rd. They probably won't win the division. They may well make the playoffs. But you just would hope for better with the talent at the team's disposal. That they would say, hey, it's not even bring back Burns, bring back Santander. It's add enough in certain areas to actually upgrade the team. If you're going to get O'Neill, add another bat. Sign Alex Bregman. Maybe trade one or both of the first basemen. I can't say that with a straight face. I'll say sign Christian Walker. I was going to say sign Pete Alonso, but let's not say that. You get what I'm saying, though. It's there's guys out there. Sign Jerkson Profar. He's still out on the market. Sign Ha-Seong Kim. He's still out on that market. Just add to the talent you have. It's not like all these contracts are going to be ridiculous and for a ton of years. You can sign Ha-Seong Kim for 2 years, $30 million. That's what we're doing with all these other guys. He'd be better than Jackson Holliday at second base. Or you move Westberg to second and have him play third. However you want to do it. Sign Profar. Have an extra outfielder. It's just having guys or multiple lefty arms that are higher level than what you've signed. Maybe they're a little riskier because of injuries, but still, they're at best making ARB money. Luzardo's making 8 a year? Crochet's making maybe 3? That's nothing. Instead, you're paying Morton 15 to eat innings and be whatever number starter, which is not going to be one of the top 2 because you don't really have a top 1 or 2. It's maybe Greason. So anyway, what do you guys think? I don't expect much from this team. I don't expect them to win. If they win, great, but it's just confusing the direction sometimes, and I would have liked to have some clarity. But anyway, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.